Yeah, let's talk about Milei. I mean, Milei. There's a great article today in the Dispatch, um, written by Scott Lincicome, who I'm a big fan of. I think you know that he's been on the show. I've interviewed him, and he's a good policy guy, economic policy guy, and he's written an article basically summarizing the state of what we know about Milei's policies, successes, and successes. Um, Milei, of course, came into office with big plans and big promises. Chainsaw wielding, crazy man. Uh, and of course, the conventional economists predicted doom and gloom and the end of the world as we know it. And then he actually did what he was going to say, what he said he would do. At least he did a large percentage of what he said he would do. And the consequences have been all positive. If you're going to criticize Milei of anything, it's basically not doing more of what he promised to do. And some of that is he's being cautious. And some of that is he doesn't have the political tools to do it because he doesn't control his parliament. Remember, when Milei came into power, inflation was over 200%. Poverty was over 40%. And poverty as they define it. And the physical deficit was 15% of GDP. It was huge. They had a huge and growing public debt, a bankrupt central bank, and an economy that was shrinking. GDP was shrinking. The economy was shrinking. And within the first month, Milei cut the number of government ministries in half, from 18 to 9, and cut spending by 30%. Now, I want you to really think about this for a minute. In his first month, Javier Milei cut government spending by 30%. 30%. By how much has Donald Trump cut government spending in his first 3 months in office? 30%? 20%? 10%? Zero. Government spending is increasing. Even if you believe Doge's most optimistic numbers, maybe they've cut 50, 60 billion out of a $7 trillion budget, and the 50, 60 trillion dollars is not for this year's budget, it's over the next few years. So it's an insignificant amount, even if you believe all their numbers and their numbers are not true. And if you actually look at spending, which is, for Milei, we're actually looking at the amount of money government spend from 1 month to the next month went down by 30%. In the United States, the government spent more in February than it did in January. My guess is it is spending more in March than it did in February, and it will spend more in April than it did in March. That is, there has been no cut of spending. Milei did 30%. I can't emphasize that enough. That's huge. If you cut 30% of the budget in the United States, it would mean cutting over $2 trillion in 1 month. Ain't happening. Now, he also tried, after the cutting of spending and shrinking. I mean, look at how many departments has Trump eliminated. Maybe he's eliminated the Department of Education, still to be seen, and certainly no bill has gone through Congress with that. Milei eliminated 9 in his first month. Then he put together a massive reform bill that he took to Congress. A lot of it was scaled back because of a legislature which he did not have a majority in. Unlike Trump, because Trump has majority in the House and majority in the Senate. Now, granted, small majorities, but that's politics. Milei got a lot done, even though he had no majority a tiny minority actually in the House of Parliament. What we've seen in Argentina is, according to economists Sebastian Galliani and Santiago Afonso, this is from the article by Scott Lincecum, the most aggressive one-year physical consolidation ever recorded in the history of man. More spending cuts in 6 months than the previous president, 2 times ago, Marcy, who was also from the right, did in 4 years. But more than that, Milei has demonstrated an unprecedented commitment to maintaining the cuts, not just a one-time cut, but a sustained cut. Milei has vetoed laws that were approved by Congress that would increase public spending, even when they were very popular. For example, increasing pensions, he vetoed it. And now he has the credibility. People really believe that he is going to cut spending and that cutting spending is going to be sustainable over the long run. But maybe the most impressive thing that Milei has done is the massive deregulation that he has put together. Again, there's an article published this week by Vasquez where he explains that the real power of the Argentinian government lay in the hundreds of thousands, 300,000 laws, decrees, resolutions, regulations. According to the Human Freedom Index, Argentina was one of the most regulated countries in the world. Regulatory burden ranking 146 out of 165 countries. Now, he has fired massive numbers of public employees. I think this is what's inspired Elon Musk to fire government employees. It's too bad they can't cut spending. He's abolished 100 secretariats and subsecretariats. These are kind of bureaucratic agencies. And many lower level, 200 lower level bureaucratic departments. And he's just got rid of regulations in a wide variety of areas. We've talked in the past about the elimination of regulations on rent that have actually seen the supply of housing double in Buenos Aires and rents plummet. But he has deregulated. He's deregulated pharmaceuticals, technology, transportation, tourism, energy, and agriculture. They've streamlined regulatory processes, inspections, testing, permits, licensing, warehousing, and personnel. All of that has been reduced dramatically to reduce the burden on new and existing businesses. He's also liberalized trade, not completely, but he's done a lot to liberalize trade. Eliminated, again, the opposite of Trump, eliminated various trade regulations, import licenses, for example, on appliances and clothing, Buy Argentina mandates, which things like Biden and Trump have put into legislation, where if you want to build something, you have to include Buy America stuff. Well, the Buy Argentina mandates have been trashed, have been eliminated. The idea of only Argentinian airlines can fly in Argentina, gone. So they now have an open sky policy, which has driven a huge increase in the number of flights to Argentina and within Argentina, because now anybody can fly to Argentina and inside Argentina. The United States doesn't have that. We don't have open skies. They also just announced a revolutionary deregulation allowing unencumbered imports and exports of food that's already been approved by a competent regulator abroad. This is like what we talked about yesterday about baby food. Why can't you import baby food into the United States? Well, the FDA hasn't inspected it. Maybe it's poison. But the European FDA has inspected it. Isn't that good enough? We don't know of massive numbers of children dying from food poisoning in Europe because of baby food. Argentina is going to do that. If the FDA has approved it, if the Europeans have approved it, it's good for Argentina. Now, you could argue you don't need food inspectors at all, but okay, next level. But for now, just allow for the importation of food that's being inspected by other people's regulators that are just as good as yours. It's cut tariffs unilaterally on consumer goods. It's eliminated a blanket tax on all imports that existed before. Eliminated a tax on overseas debit and credit card purchases. It's reduced export taxes in agriculture. And he gave a big speech the other day on the benefits of free trade and the evils of protectionism, in spite of the fact that one of his best friends is a protectionist and a believer in tariffs. Anyway, you know what Scotland Sikkim documents here is the incredible things that Milei has done. Now he says, and I think legitimately, that we all wish he'd done more. He could be liberalizing trade even more aggressively. He could be getting rid of regulations even more so. There's a lot more that he could do. The government has cut and modified 20% of the country's laws. The goal is 70. So there's a lot more to do. In addition, you know, Milei promised dollarization. He hasn't quite lived up to dollarization. He promised to close the central bank. That still hasn't happened, although he promises it will happen at some point. There's still too many restrictions on trade, as I said. Yeah, there's a lot that still needs to be done. But wow, the amount that's been done in 1 year, or 1 year and a couple of months, is astounding. In particular, when you compare to somebody who got the greatest mandate in history, won by the biggest margins ever, Donald Trump, has done really almost nothing. I mean, I think really, really good things are going to happen in energy and environment, and those are going to be big and important. But I don't know of any real initiatives outside of there that are going to have any kind of dramatic impact. Milei is doing this across the entire economy, and the results are, phenomenal. Inflation has fallen from 25% in late 2023 to still bad, but a big improvement of 2.4%. That's a 90% drop. And it's expected that it's going to go down a little bit from here. That is, total inflation in 2025 will be 23% instead of the peak of 260%. They've done a lot to reform the central bank, improve the central bank. And generally, risk in Argentina has declined dramatically. Argentina is growing solidly. GDP growth is significant. In 2025, they're expecting very high GDP growth, somewhere between 7 and 8%. Unemployment rate is going down. Labor participation rate is going up. Real wages have gone up significantly. And because of the loosening of regulations on trade is up significantly. Imports have increased. Exports went up. I mean, by every measure. Poverty, by the way, is down dramatically. As we said, rents are down hugely in Buenos Aires, and the supply is up dramatically. By every measure, really, you're seeing an improved quality of life, standard of living in Argentina. There's been deregulation of satellite service, which has now increased connectivity and reduced prices of internet service dramatically. You can now buy over-the-counter medication in places other than pharmacies. There's a regulation prohibiting that, which has resulted in more competition, online sales, and price drops. And there's been a 20% drop in the price of clothing and a 35% drop in the price of home appliances because of making it easy to import these things. So, huge successes, lots of challenges on the horizon. Lots of challenges. There's an election in October. It's going to be interesting to see how well Milei does. The election is for parliament. He's going to run a party. If he really wants to get his full agenda across, he has to win those elections. He has to get a majority, or at least be able to form a coalition that gets a majority. It's going to be a tough battle. The leftists, rightists, the fascists, the Peronists, all the various factions within the Argentinian opposition to Milei are going to rally and try to defeat him. But right now, it seems like he's doing well. We'll see what happens as we move into the future. He's got to refinance a lot of foreign debt. He still has to deal, of course, with the central bank. I think one of the reasons he hasn't dollarized or shut down the central bank is because he doesn't want to piss off the IMF, from whom he still needs a big loan later in the year. And of course, he needs to keep up the pace. He needs to keep deregulating. As we said, he got rid of 20% of the laws, but his goal is 70%. So there's a lot of work to do. And economics, as we know, is hard to predict. But, I mean, the success so far is astounding. We can only hope and wish him the best that he continues on this path. He is by far the most impressive politician in the world today. He is committed to the ideas about economic liberalization. He's flawed in all kinds of ways, religion, abortion, other things. But he is so good on economic freedom that I'm willing to forgive him all those other things. I mean, the progress he's making on this, and as far as I know, there is no real progress on restricting other freedoms in Argentina right now. Now, that might change if he gets a majority in parliament, I don't know. But I really do think he cares about economics, and that's his thrust, and that's what he's going to focus on definitely for the foreseeable future. And I'll take that. That is pretty amazing. That is what he's done in Argentina is truly stunning. We need a little bit, or a lot of, that spirit here in the United States. That would be amazing.